Like just the gravity of these charges. Like what was done here, he took our nation's most sensitive secrets, including, according to the charging document, some nuclear secrets.
And he
Um,
put them in the shower.
he put them in the shower. The former president of the United States, everybody.
Have you ever wanted a podcast that did it all? Sports, politics, world events. Well, you have come to the right place because you are listening to C&C Talks.
Hello, I'm Colin,
And I'm Charlie.
and this is the C&C Talks podcast, season 2, episode number 20. Halfway through the season, Charlie.
Yes, it is. Just a reminder, as we do every week, we release every Wednesday, and we talk about politics, world events, and sports. It is currently Tuesday, June 13th, at about 4:30 p.m. Pacific time.
Yep, and Charlie, this episode is packed, especially this politics section coming up. We're going to dive into Trump's indictment, the Supreme Court upholding the Voting Rights Act, Chris Litt stepping down as the CEO of CNN, all of the smoke in New York City, the deaths of Pat Robertson and Ted Kaczynski, Boris Johnson's resignation, ethics investigation into Matt Gaetz, collapse of I-95, Ukraine, and more. It's a big section, Charlie. Let's dive right in.
Yeah, let's dive into it with the biggest story of the week, arguably, the Trump indictment. He's been indicted again. This time for something far more serious than the last time. Colin, what exactly is he in trouble for now?
Yeah, so that first indictment, of course, that was in New York, indicted by the Manhattan District Attorney, that's Alvin Bragg, indicted on 34 felony counts, um, mostly regarding the payoffs of Stormy Daniels and another woman. Um, this is an indictment in the Southern District of Florida by Special Counsel Jack Smith, who was appointed back in November. 38 37 counts in this indictment. First 31 are willful retention of national defense information. Um, there's those charges, by the way, those are under the Espionage Act. Then there is also a charge of conspiracy to obstruct justice, withholding a document or a record, corruptly concealing a document or record, concealing a document in a federal investigation, scheme to conceal, false statements, and representations. So, lot of counts in this indictment. It's a pretty big deal, Charlie. Some of these counts, lots of jail time associated. If anyone else did anything like this, they'd be in jail for the rest of their life.
And yet, it doesn't matter. He's still going to win the Republican nomination. It doesn't matter what happens to him here. It might affect the presidency result, possibly, but for the primary, this honestly kind of helps him, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll get in a couple minutes to the reaction from the Republican side. But Charlie, like just the gravity of these charges, like what was done here, he took our nation's most sensitive secrets, including, according to the charging document, some nuclear secrets.
And he
Um,
put them in the shower.
he put them in the shower. The former president of the United States, everybody, and yeah, he was arraigned in court a few hours before we are taping this episode. No pretrial detention. You think that would happen to anyone else? No, that there would be pretrial detention. This is a big big deal what he did, and I think it really is important, Charlie, to talk about that Republican reaction because they are set to nominate him to basically just forget about the fact that this is what he did the last time that he was in office. committed
And
these
no doubt that he'll do it again.
flagrant offenses. Oh, no doubt that he'll do it again. But also, I'm struck by something that was actually said by Rachel Maddow. Said like if this is actually going to help Trump in the Republican field, then in today's Republican Party, it's an asset to be a criminal.
Yeah, it is.
And I mean, if you look at there are some Republicans who are saying like, that yeah, these are very serious charges. You can't just dismiss them. But most of the Republicans just saying, but what about Hillary Clinton's emails? What about the boxes in Biden's garage? Both of which were wrong. I don't think you're going to find anybody saying that what happened with the Biden boxes and the Hillary emails, that they acted well. But there's a difference between bad behavior and criminal behavior.
Well, and also with the other people who've had documents found at their house, Pence and Biden, they both returned them.
Yeah, when they found them,
Something that Trump did not.
he intentionally concealed them from the investigators. I would not be surprised if there's still boxes of documents at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah,
Like,
maybe in the room that he flooded.
yeah, well, and think about, Charlie. Think about the people that have put their lives on the line to gain this intelligence, and look at what happened to it. You think that our allies are going to share intelligence with us anymore?
No.
Why would they? If that's how it's going to be treated.
Yeah. In some other news from DC, the Supreme Court has upheld the Voting Rights Act in what is good news for both the country's democracy and for the Democrats. Can we get some more about exactly how this helps them in 2024?
Yeah, so this was a specific lawsuit regarding the state of Alabama's congressional gerrymander. Should have 6 seats clearly favoring Republicans, 1 clearly favoring Democrats. Now, under the Voting Rights Act, racial gerrymandering is not allowed. So the Supreme Court's decision was that there needs to be a second majority black seat in Alabama, which will likely give another seat to the Democrats. So that's a seat gained there, but there's more because this decision could also impact congressional maps in Louisiana, could gain Democrats a seat there, maybe even Georgia. And with that, and New York is set to redraw their congressional maps, potentially doing a pretty, I mean, I'm going to be honest, awful gerrymander, clearly favoring the Democrats. And Wisconsin, gerrymander that the Republicans did, set to be thrown out by the state Supreme Court. There you go. There's the 5 seats or more that Democrats need to retake the House in 2024. And there's more because there's a bunch of really, really close seats all around California, Colorado, that could also flip because they were decided by less than a point in 2022.
So the Democrats' House chances are looking a lot better than they did in 2022.
They're clearly the favorites here.
As for someone who is not a favorite right now, Chris Litt, who has now been fired from CNN as CEO. What exactly happened to him?
We'll start with the fact that he was, in fairness to him, dealt a bad hand because CNN's new owners, Warner Brothers Discovery, are pretty far right and clearly had a vision for the network that does not match up with what they've had previously. But it's not like Litt played his hand well. He did these town halls with Trump. He gave oxygen to the lies, and he lost the confidence, I would say, Charlie, of the newsroom, of all the staff at CNN, and at that point, what else can be done besides fire him?
Yeah, and this puts CNN in some trouble. And
CNN's
as you
already
can
in
see,
some trouble.
Yeah, this does not help though. And as I've been saying over the last few months, with all the chaos around Fox and now at CNN, the big news organizations have been taking some hits recently.
Well, I'll say this, which is that MSNBC has for a while now rated better than CNN overall, just in terms of like just daily numbers. But when there's big breaking news, CNN generally uh, outrates MSNBC and sometimes Fox by a lot. Now, Thursday and Friday, with tying this back to the Trump indictment, when we heard that he was indicted and then when the indictment was unsealed, CNN was dead last among those three channels.
That is
So
critical for
they
them
can't
that they
even,
get those numbers back up.
yeah. And ratings equals money. It's a business after all. Maybe it shouldn't be,
Speaking
but it is a business.
Speaking of disasters, there have been large wildfires across Canada causing large amounts of smoke in parts of the Northeast, including New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and I think that Charlie really speaks to climate change is here. It's now. Do you
Yeah,
agree?
and of course, this happens in the Pacific Northwest a lot as well, so we're getting used to it, but it is interesting to see how it's impacting other parts of the country now as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is not normal, and I mean, I feel like we've said a lot in the last couple years. Like the first time that this crazy weather event has happened since blah blah blah, or like the hottest on record, or whatever. Some records. Those aren't records that you want to be setting, and they're not anomalies, right? When this
No,
many climate records are being broken at once,
not good.
no. And to me, it speaks for the need for immediate action, right?
Yeah, I'm
And
honestly surprised that it's mid-June and Seattle hasn't hit 100 degrees yet, so that's pretty good.
well, look at the temperatures in the North Atlantic right now,
They are heating up.
hotter than they have ever been before at this point in the year. Not
They're
good
heating
signs.
up, unlike the Phillies, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Um,
There were some deaths since we last recorded. Uh, Pat Robertson and Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski being the infamous Unabomber.
yeah, not exactly the best people that we said goodbye to in the last week. Ted Kaczynski, obviously, the domestic terrorist, and then Pat Robertson, a uh, a Christian who pushed in the media his basic basically Christian nationalism. I think puts it well.
My favorite.
He was 93, I believe, when he passed. Kaczynski passed. He was 81, I believe, and I believe, Charlie, that he died due to in prison, correct?
I believe so.
And I believe that he died by suicide.
I'm not. I'm not sure about that, but um, I do know he did die, and that's all I know.
Prison officials believe that he killed himself. So interesting there. Then Charlie, some news across the pond. Boris Johnson, he's back in the news, and he found another position to resign from.
Yes, he has now resigned from Parliament after the Partygate scandal that really destroyed his chances as Prime Minister, now coming back again to bring him down even further in what is another disaster for Johnson. And
Yeah, and you could
just
clearly
yet
tell that there was
again,
some pressure on him from the conservatives.
there certainly was, but this is again another blow to the Conservatives, whose election chances in a few years are looking worse and worse by the day.
Yeah, I do think though that
However,
Charlie,
However, Sunak has kind of saved them a little bit. They were
maybe
looking
somewhat.
like they were basically guaranteed to lose, and now they're gaining a little bit of traction, but there's still a long way to go until they have a shot to win the election.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like it might actually be beneficial for the Conservatives for Boris Johnson to be out because they no longer have to tie themselves to him. They're no longer as tied to him anymore, maybe? Do you
Yeah, but
think
there
that
are some
that's
people who still
accurate?
support him.
Okay.
It's like if Ron DeSantis got kicked out of politics. That's not necessarily good for the Republicans. It's good for
Yeah, I
certain
don't know.
members of the party, but it's not good for the party as a whole.
Yeah, I get your point. I get your point. The House
Speaking of
Ethics
not
Committee,
good, Matt
House,
Gaetz.
yeah, House Ethics Committee reopening an investigation into Matt Gaetz in what could be a sign of retaliation from Republican leaders for the way that Gates conducted himself towards them in a GOP rules vote, failing. Freedom Caucus blocking a rules vote. First time that a rules vote has failed in the House since 2002, so a humiliation for Kevin McCarthy there. Gates has humiliated McCarthy before. I think that this could be a signal to the far right, Charlie, from McCarthy and his allies. Don't mess with us.
Yeah, I think it certainly is. It is, though, important. McCarthy really does need those votes as well. When he's towing a very fine line between, listen, you can't push us around, but we still need you so we can pass our agenda.
It's really a weird situation because on one hand the far right has the leverage because they can kick him out, but at the same time McCarthy he might have some leverage because he knows about all of these very shady things that the Freedom Caucus is doing, especially when you look at Gates, who this investigation is into the child sex trafficking stuff.
And the last bit of our politics section, we've had wildfires, political chaos going on with, as it always does, and now we have exploding freeways. I-95 has collapsed in Philadelphia. This is a major roadway in the east, northeast, and really in the Atlantic as a whole. And this will apparently take years to fix. What
Yeah,
exactly happened?
yeah, I'm hearing at least months and potentially years, um, for some optimistic reports. I believe that it was a truck that caught fire that caused the bridge to collapse. But either way, I think it's an indictment, Charlie, on the infrastructure in the U.S. That a highway like this, I mean, highways collapse, it happens, but that there's no real good alternative for the people of Philadelphia.
No, there really isn't.
And that just
No,
speaks volumes to the fact that we need better infrastructure, and I think that there's some on the way after the bipartisan infrastructure bill passed a couple of years ago, but these projects are taking a lot of time. We still have a long way to go.
yes, we do. Moving now to the world stage, with the Ukrainian counteroffensive now finally underway. It began really after Russian troop movements saw opening for the Ukrainians to advance into. Progress has been good so far. They've advanced about a mile near Bakhmut, and I believe that their goal in the opening stages will be to recapture that city that the Russians fully captured last month.
Yeah, I mean, the Ukrainians have a long way to go, but it is encouraging to see that there is clear progress that they're making.
Yeah, this is I believe one of the most important stages is the opening stage. The Ukrainians now certainly definitely have the momentum, and we want to see what they can do with it.
Yeah, and also I think that an opening stage the success, as a success can help solidify the support of the rest of the world and not make them have second thoughts about whether Ukraine is really capable of doing what they want to do here.
Yeah, I believe the U.S. announced or either today or yesterday another aid package to the Ukrainians.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens there also with the Republican Congress, who we know that lots of Republicans are less than willing at the moment to send Ukraine additional aid.
All right, let's move on to sports now. We're now in the back half of the show. And we'll start off with the NBA Finals, which finally ended. It ended in about the way we expected it. Nuggets ended up winning the series in 5 after Miami stole Game 2 in Denver. The Nuggets rolled, Jokic won Finals MVP, and the Denver Nuggets had their first championship in the history of the franchise.
Yeah, and I feel like there's not that much that needs to be said here, other than the Nuggets were just a very, very good team. Jokic obviously incredible. Jamal Murray looking more and more like a superstar, and then some really solid role players to go along with that, with Michael Portis Jr. and Aaron Gordon, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Bruce Brown,
So,
whole
so
cast of characters.
the question has to be asked then, is this a dynasty that is sustainable?
You can't call it a dynasty, Charlie, when it's happened for a year.
Yeah, but
Just,
could it
just,
become one is what I'm asking.
I mean, who's going to beat them next year? Like
Yeah, well,
today,
I mean,
like today, who do we think is capable of beating them next year? Obviously, the off season is going to be wild.
I think if you give the Heat another chance and give them Hero back at full strength, I think they might have a chance. But they're the only team.
Yeah, I don't think that the Celtics could do it. I don't think that the Bucks could have done it, and
Celtics can't do it. Milwaukee can't do it. No one out of the East can do it.
the
The
Bucks,
Warriors
Charlie, are
don't.
in for a rebuild
Warriors
too.
don't have it. Lakers can't. Yeah, the Nuggets are, I think, the best team in the league by far, and they deserve to win the championship.
Yeah, no, the Raptors have hired a new head coach, Darko Rajakovic, who is an assistant for the Memphis Grizzlies. So now, Charlie, every head coaching position is now filled. What about some really bad NBA news, Charlie? But in some ways, kind of funny.
The Heat mascot has been sent to the emergency room. Has this mascot been discharged yet?
I believe so. It's a skit that they were doing on the court, that involved Conor McGregor punching the Heat mascot. Let's just say that Conor McGregor doesn't punch softly.
No, that is a very big understatement. We hope that this mascot is okay.
Yeah, it's rough. But then, Charlie, maybe overshadowing what happened at the NBA Finals, maybe the biggest sporting news of the last week regarded the sport of golf.
Unbelievably, the PGA
Yeah,
Tour and Live Golf, the Saudi Arabian golf tournament, have decided to merge. And this is not good news for the players who decided not to abandon the PGA and take the money that the Saudi Arabian tournament was offering. Those players, we don't know if they'll be compensated or not. That remains to be seen, but this is a huge merger and a big day for the sport of golf.
yeah, and I don't think that necessarily these two tours will merge, but basically what it means is that the Saudis just bought professional golf. Like
Oopsies.
the 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 PGA is basically now under the control of the Saudi Public Investment Fund. That's not good. That's a complete betrayal of the players who were told by the PGA, stick with us because we have this moral high ground here. We're opposing uh, the Saudis who have these a terrible track record on human rights, and now look what the PGA did when money came knocking.
Yeah,
They went,
just not a good look at all. And now for some other big news. Probably the most recognizable sports star in the world, Messi, is going to join Inter Miami, one of the worst teams in the MLS. Why did he decide to do this?
um, money probably. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because he was offered a lot of money by the Saudis. Circling back there, it's kind of conflicting reports, but somewhere north of $1 billion.
Yeah, I believe I saw
And
the deal was worth 1.3 or 1.4 billion.
Yeah, a lot of money. He declined that, again, circling back to the whole human rights thing. Studies coming to the US. Fascinating deal because it includes some incentives for promoting Major League Soccer and their and MLS Season Pass, their TV deal with Apple TV Plus. So, will this help Inter Miami? Yeah, sure. He's great. Will it make them a championship caliber team? Maybe. Probably not. Will it turn the world's attention towards Major League Soccer and really help them boost their product? Absolutely. So this is huge for the future of soccer in the United States.
Yeah, it is absolutely massive. Cannot be understated. Another big soccer event, the Champions League wraps up. Inter Milan losing to Man City. Man City has just gone on a tear this year, winning the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the Champions League.
Yeah, they just missed out on the other cup, the EFL Cup in England. That trophy actually also went to a team from Manchester and Manchester United. Um, First time the Man City's ever actually won UEFA. That talk about dynasties, Charlie.
They could be one.
They are one. They've now won, I believe, 5 of the last 6 Premier Leagues. They've won three
Yeah, I
trophies in
think
the
you're
season.
correct.
They've won 3 trophies in the season.
And now
That that
moving to the
that's a
and now
dinosaur.
moving to the last sport that people actually care about before we move into stuff like tennis is the Stanley Cup Finals. Game 5 is tonight. The Vegas Golden Knights lead the Florida Panthers 3-1 in the series, and it
Charlie,
looks like
Charlie,
Vegas is going to close it out.
Charlie. Yeah, tonight, as of when we're recording this, so these finals could very well be over by the time that you are listening to this episode.
And Game 6 would be on Wednesday?
Game 6 would be Friday night, with the
Ah,
potential Game 7 next Monday night. But I don't think it's going to go that long. Vegas has established themselves as the far superior team in this series, and I fully expect them to win the series.
Florida came back from down 3-1 in round 1 against Boston, though.
But it takes a special kind of team like Boston to have that happen.
Yeah, but does it say more about Boston or more about
It
Florida?
says more about Boston.
Does it?
Don't get me wrong. What Florida's done is incredible, but it says more about the Boston Bruins.
All right, now moving on, and I can tell our viewership numbers are about to tank from this. Colin, you can talk about tennis.
It's a good sport, Charlie. What's your problem with
No,
it?
you diss
Uh,
my sport, I can diss yours.
I don't. Okay, someone who's listening to this episode, go find a clip of me diffing Formula One.
Oh no,
Ch-
that'll be
ch-
coming out in a few weeks.
you actually have a compilation prepared?
I'm working on it.
And how many clips have you found thus far? 0?
Three.
Okay, but they're probably kind of lame clips.
Oh, you'll see. To our viewers, you'll see.
Yeah, okay. I'm looking forward to hearing your evidence as well. In the French Open, the second of 4 slams in 2023, Iga Swiatek wins the women's tournament again. Just an absolutely dominant stretch for Swiatek over the last couple of years, cementing her spot at #1 in the world with a 3-set win over Carolina Mukova. On the men's side, I don't even have to say it was Djokovic. Of course, it was Djokovic. Number 23 for him, with the straight set win in the finals over Casper Ruud. Most all time for a man, and ties Serena Williams for second most all time by anybody. Just incredible. And Djokovic will enter Wimbledon as the favorite. He will as a big favorite, and he will enter the U.S. Open as at least a slight favorite. I think that there's a non-zero chance that he could end up with like 28 in his career. He still seems
It's
to very much be at the top of his game.
it's possible. Now moving on to college softball and college baseball. Colin, I'll hand this off to you again.
Yeah, Oklahoma won the Women's College World Series again. Ended the season on a 53-game win streak. Just absolutely unbelievable.
They are rolling.
I believe that they won the title last year as well. So an
They did,
incredible
and the
streak
year before that, I'm pretty sure.
for them. Yeah. And in college baseball, it was Super Regionals weekend. Spots in the College World Series on the line. And it was a good weekend of baseball, Charlie. If you look at the Wake Forest Alabama series, Wake Forest cruising over Alabama and 2 wins, including wins that series 2-0, including beating Alabama in the second game 22-5. Unbelievable. LSU with a couple of quick wins against Kentucky to put themselves in the College World Series. Virginia got down a game, but then won the next 2 over Duke. They're through, as is Stanford, who lost the first game as well in a heartbreaker. They were winning by 3 entering the 9th inning, give up 5 runs in the top of the 9th, end up losing. They come back, win game 2. This may have been the best series of them all. Charlie, their pitcher in game 2, Quinn Matthews, pitched a complete game. I believe it was 156 pitches. I might be off by a couple.
I
Just a
believe it was 156 as well.
just a ridiculous performance by him. And then in game 3, 6-6, bottom of the 9th, Texas outfielder loses the ball in the lights. Stanford scores the winning run. Ridiculous series. They're through. Tennessee looked to be in trouble for a while. The Southern Miss, they end up winning that series 2-2. Oral Roberts, Oregon. This series was actually also just a wild one. Oregon came back from down 8 in the first game. Then they blow game 2. And then Oral Roberts wins game 3. So Oral Roberts is through. And then the other 2 series were pretty quick sweeps. TCU over Indiana State and Florida over South Carolina. So College World Series begins this weekend, and it'll be a good one.
Yes, it will. And to wrap up, we have a story, a rather funny story, actually. Nevada's legislature just passed a bill to fund the Oakland, now Las Vegas, A's. Good job, you wasted, billions of dollars.
It's $380 million bill that they just passed. A's. It looks like the A's are moving. We'll see how the A's fans' reverse boycott will go Tuesday night. That might be something that we'll talk about next week. We shall see. One other quick note. We generally don't mention horse racing that much. The Belmont Stakes were this weekend, and Jenna Antonucci, the trainer of Arcangelo, who won, she became the first trainer to win a American Triple Crown race. So incredible history-making stuff for her. That'll close out our episode, though, I believe, Charlie.
Yes, it will.
Make sure that you subscribe to the C&C Talks podcast, because we have episodes coming out every single Wednesday, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Our website, cctalks.net, has everything you need to know about the show, plus you can call us with your questions at 360-389-2630. Again, that's 360-389-2630. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter at CC Talks Podcast. For our producer Morris, our production designer Zach, and our proof editor Drake, I'm Colin.
And I'm Charlie. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening.